Okay, I'm going to do a tutorial on one of my favorite minnow patterns. I call this one a balanced tui chub. I made this coloration for Pyramid Lake, but it works everywhere that there's baitfish, and you can color it any way you want. So I'm using a jigged hook. You can use a 90 degree or a 60 degree, doesn't matter. I'm using a 60 degree because I can get a heavier wire gauge. I have a sequin pin and a tungsten bead. This is a 3.5 millimeter bead. Tungsten is super important for this because you need it to sink, you need it to balance. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a couple wraps on here, and I'm going to do just a quick whip finish like that. And I'm going to, wow, that's a dull scissors. I'm going to balance this hook out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just those loose wraps. So now I can grab some thread, okay, or wire or whatever is in front of you. So here's some wire. I'm going to put this through and make sure that my hook is balanced. So what I want, not quite, so this is why we do it loose, so you can pull it forward. Might be a little much. Okay, so I pulled that bead forward. Boom. And you can see right there, that's kind of about what I want. If anything, I want it to be a little bit more bead heavy, so that way when I add the material, it's perfectly balanced out. But that is pretty good. So now I know that this is going to be where I want my balance. I'm going to go back through, and now I'm going to actually tighten this on properly. Put a good layer of thread over it, like so. Okay. Nice layer of thread like this. And then I'm going to work it all the way up to that bead. And just a little bit of a thread dam. I don't need much because I'm going to build up all my material behind it. Like so. Okay. Now, this is a pretty simple minnow pattern for the most part, but what we're going to use is a mix. Okay, so I have polar gray dubbing. You can substitute any colors you want, but this is the one I like for this particular pattern. So I'm going to do 1 bag of polar gray, 1 bag of frost dubbing, or any other equal, and 1 bag of polar dub white transparent. And what that's going to do is give me this really cool mix. This is a pre-mix I did. It gets this pale, almost, I call it almost a zombie-like color. But it is a perfect base for your minnow patterns, and particularly for this tui chub pattern. It's excellent. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my dubbing tool here that I've made, and I'm going to just do a quick dubbing loop. Actually, I'm going to do a tail first. So what I'm going to do, just grab a little bit of this material, kind of pinch it out. I'm going to line up those fibers, and I'm going to tie in just a quick tail. So I'm going to tie it in on the back, right in the middle, pull it back, tie it in. Okay, that's just my tail. Go back up and down. Now I'm going to do my dubbing loop, so I'm going to create that. Wrap it backwards. And back forward. Now, at these stages, you can absolutely add glue just to strengthen everything up, but I'm just going to tie one here quick. I'm going to put this on. All right, and here's my dubbing loop. This dubbing loop is about 4 or 5 inches long, and I'm going to use the same mix, and I'm going to line that up and set it into the dubbing loop, push it up to the top, and I want it to look something like this. There we go. Something like this, where it's not overly filled, but it does need to be dense enough because this is the whole body of this minnow. So I'm going to try to keep that thickness through the whole length. I'm going to put just a tiny bit more here at the bottom. Boom. So there it is. So just going to make sure it's kind of all pushed up here, somewhat evenly spaced, and twist it up. Get this all twisted up. Now, Forgot my brush, but that's okay. You want this to be a nice twist. Now, at this point, you can decide if you want to pick it out. Now you can use a brush, pick it out, your fingers. I don't worry too much about that. I actually like to pick it out after I've wrapped it up. So I'm gonna go ahead, just start this since my phone's kind of close. There we go. And forward. And I'm just gonna keep wrapping one right in front of the other. I'm gonna do one extra wrap here in the middle just to add that body that a minnow would have. Keep working it forward. And I'm gonna do those last couple wraps right behind the bead. Boom. If you end up with a ton of extra material, that's fine, just clip it off. I'm gonna tie that down and cut. Okay, wow, these are really dull. All right, so now that I have prepared the body, I'm gonna just pull this back and stack this and whip. Want to make sure that your bead is really well secured at this point. Boom, like so. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use my scissors, but again, you can use a dubbing brush, you could use whatever you want, but I'm going to put that under and I'm just gonna pick this out. I'm gonna pick this out. Be careful not to cut the loops that you've just made, but you want to get this nice and picked out. I'm gonna go all the way around. It's gonna look a bit like a fluff ball, like so. Very good, like so. Okay, and now just going to brush that all back. Okay, now this is already where the magic happens. So immediately now you can kind of see that there's a bit more of that minnow profile. What I also like about this material is that once it gets wet, that profile just really, really comes alive. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get ready to color. And so I'm going to use, for this particular one, I'm not going to use black on this one. I'm going to use this, this is kind of like a gray, brownish. It's a warm gray, but you can use any gray. It looks great with a light olive as well. And I'm going to use orange. So these tui chubs get like this orange kind of highlight to their fins when they're in the spawn. So I'm just going to mimic that. But again, you can change this to whatever you want to fit your local fishery. So it's balanced, so it's going to ride like this. So I'm going to make sure that I get this kind of opened up here. Color this on. Okay, so I have my marker here. What I'm going to do, this is a gray, but you can use any color you want, really. And I just want to get a nice divide here. I do the top. Remember, it's a balanced hook, so it will flip over. If you tie it upside down, that's totally fine. It's still going to catch fish. Like so. So now you can see there's this nice kind of dark top. Okay. On the sides, I'm just going to do orange mark here, so you can see orange mark here, and this is just to mimic those two front fins, like so. Then I'm going to come all the way to the tips. I'm going to run this up like so. This is just to mimic, I'm going to cut that a little shorter here, like so. This is just to mimic that little bit of orange that they get in their tail. Now, as this gets wet, this is going to kind of mold and become a much more solid, subtle color. I'm going to just trim a little bit here, some of these hairs that are kind of getting away. And that's it. Now, at this point, if you want to, you can add eyes to it. Putting them here, it'll really look awesome. I don't think it's necessary. This is great. Now, again, you can substitute all of these. You can make the top black. You can give ribs. You can just put spots. You could just do the straight dubbing and it's going to catch fish. But this is my tui chub pattern that I use for Pyramid Lake, and it's also just a great general bait fish pattern.